This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
Welcome to the Young Wealth Show, where you'll truly learn how to make, spend, and invest money for an awesome life. Get the real-life stuff that wasn't part of your school curriculum. Young Wealth gives you innovative new ways of dealing with your finances, as well as the skills and tools you're going to need to survive and be successful out on your own. Let the Young Wealth Show be your GPS to take you from clueless to clued in. Here's your host, Jason Hartman, with Young Wealth.
It's my pleasure to welcome my good friend, Ryan Daniel Moran. He is out with a new book, 12 Months to $1 Million, How to Pick a Winning Product, Build a Real Business, and Become a Seven-Figure Entrepreneur. The book is a small part of his resume. He's got a huge resume. He holds great conferences. He's the founder of capitalism.com and formerly Freedom Fastlane. He's bought and sold several businesses. He's just done incredible things at a very young age. And it's a pleasure to have him back on the show. Ryan, welcome. How you doing?
Thanks, Jason. And I think we should clarify, a lot of podcasters will say, bringing my good friend onto the show, and you've met like twice.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You've literally slept in my home.
Yeah.
So we should say actually good friend.
Yes. I remember that convertible sofa I slept on. And that was the weekend I came out and we went to dinner with Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did.
You know what's funny about that, Ryan? That was actually a 4-hour dinner.
I tell the story of that dinner in the book.
Oh, do you really? Fantastic.
Yeah, so I tell the story. First of all, we should just highlight the fact that Jason won this dinner with somebody that I'd wanted to meet with for a long time. He invites me. Jason flies across country to have this dinner, and then he tells me where it is. And it's in my condo building.
It was downstairs in the restaurant.
Jason, he flies across the country, and all I had to do was hit ground floor
on the elevator. Yeah.
Like, what a baller. Jason Hartman is such a baller. It's just so cool. But I tell the story about how the one thing that Tim said at that dinner that really had an impact on my life was he asked, I think we're wrapping up dinner, and I said, Tim, there's one thing I would really regret if I didn't ask you. And he gave me permission. And I said, Tim, you've reached what a lot of people aspire to be in terms of level of success, in terms of notoriety and influence and wealth. And so what I want to know is, do you ever wonder if it's all worth it? And he laughed and he said, I
don't remember hearing you ask that question. So yeah, what did he say? Well,
what he said was, I've discovered there's a lot of things that are not worth pursuing, but the pursuit is worth it. And that always stuck with me, that there's a lot of things. It's like Ecclesiastes, meaningless, everything is meaningless.
Right.
Yet we create our own meaning with what we pursue.
Yeah. I'm surprised you pick Ecclesiastes. That is my favorite book in the Bible, and you're an agnostic or an atheist. I don't know which one. But Ecclesiastes, I mean, King Solomon's brilliant.
I'll put Ecclesiastes second on my favorite books. The book of Esther is my favorite book. I named my daughter after the book of Esther. Yeah. And one day we should have, maybe not on the Creating Wealth podcast, but a spiritual conversation. I have a feeling we agree more than where we disagree.
Well, yeah. And by the way, I'll just speak to that for a moment and then we'll get to the point. I know that you were studying to be a pastor. You were going to be a religious leader. That was your goal. And then you changed your thing and became a capitalist.
A religious leader of capitalism.
Right, exactly. And capitalism is arguably the most successful religion ever.
Amen.
And I think one of the reasons is, unlike religion, is that capitalism is very natural. Religion says you have to deny a lot of things, so it's unnatural. And we can debate the merits of that for 16 days if you want, but let's not go there. But I think religion is very good for society. And here's my concept for that, Ryan, is that I think if you look at like communist dictatorships, and I know you hate communism as much as I do, and socialism, they always take God out of the equation because they want to make government the big deal. Government, it's like, and I think if you make a society only accountable to government, that's a disaster. The reason is that you can always get away with something when it comes to government, right? There's a black market. You can hide from the cops. You can do whatever. But even if it's not true, okay, even if it's not true, if people believe there is this greater thing, this greater power, and they hold themselves to some sort of accountability to that, I think that's good for society. Go ahead.
We're going to go here.
Okay.
So you'll be surprised at how little I disagree with what you said,
okay,
but I interpret it just a little bit differently.
Okay.
So if we look at a concept like marriage, marriage is another institution.
Sure.
Government's an institution, religious an institution, marriage is an institution, which are really ways that we instill things that we like or things that we want to change into society. So religion has lots of great benefits. And I mean, they have physical benefits. People who are plugged into community live longer.
Right. Yeah. Community is a big part of religion. And by the way, yes, I interviewed a famous atheist on my show. I can't think of his name right now, but he's written a zillion books on it. He's a big deal. And he says the one thing we don't have is community. That's where atheism totally blows it. Yeah.
Yes. So we can instill those things into society through an institution like religion or through government. And we all think that a safety net. Jason, if you're going through a hard time and you're like, I need to sleep on your couch, I'm like, come on over.
Right.
Like, I'll be your safety net, buddy. So we know that taking care of each other is a good thing. And so we instill it often through government programs.
Right.
The downside of all institutions is once the thing that we have instilled is no longer necessary, we tend to hold on to them. That's why it's hard to roll back government. It is why it is difficult to scale down programs that we don't like. It's difficult to change thoughts within a religion because they're instilled in us. So it's a double-edged thing where we instill what's important, but then it makes it more difficult to adapt to what is new. And I think that is kind of our role as human beings, to be pursuing what's new and then having conversations like this to bring what we like into where we are now into society.
Good point. One last thing about religion, and I love, by the way, on the back cover of Ryan's book, it says, it has a little blurb about his bio, and then at the end it says, he loves talking about politics and religion, the two things that are considered off limits.
They're my favorite conversations.
I love it. That's so funny. But the other thing I'll say about religion is that a lot of people will say, well, look at all those people in church, they're a bunch of hypocrites, right? You hear this all the time, like, I know religious people that burn me in a business deal. And of course that's true, right? They're asking the wrong question, though. The question they should be asking is, how much worse would these people be if they didn't have some concept of religion? They might be barbaric. They might be much worse. And we never know. We'll never know the answer because
it might be the opposite too. We just don't.
Yeah. I just the last statement on that is, I always talk about on my podcast, you can't hear the dogs that don't bark, right? There's a profound impact in what is unseen and what doesn't happen, but nobody knows. Like minimum wage, Ryan, and this one you'll love, right? I'm sure you agree on this. Bernie Sanders will say, well, raise the minimum wage. And okay, so people that have jobs make a little more money. Great. But then they never count all the people that never get a job or lost they count maybe they lost their job, but they never count who didn't get a job because the government interfered in that transaction where two people wanted to, someone wanted to employ them and another wanted to work. And the government says, no, you can't do that. Sorry.
That's exactly right. And I would say minimum wage is an institution, just like all the other things that we've talked about, where you have something that you're trying to force into society because you see its benefits, and then you are unable to roll that away or to grow through that because you've instilled the bad pieces of it along with what you wanted to change for the positive.
Absolutely. So you were going to say something else, I think, about religion. I just wanted to make my point about how much worse would they be? That's all. And then let's move on to the interview.
Sure. Just that. I think we tend to look for the evidence of what we already believe, which is like in your
confirmation
case,
bias. Yeah.
Like in your case, you're saying religion is a pacifying, calming, uniting idea. How much worse would these people be if they didn't have it? Somebody else might say religion is a divisive, old way of thinking, and look at these people who are screwing these others in a business deal and they're Christians. And so I think we can find evidence for whatever it is that we believe. I think that religion can be a way of bringing beliefs that we want to continue, voluntary beliefs that we want to continue, and instilling them into society so that they last a long time. But there's positives and benefits to that as well.
Yep, no question about it. No question about it. Okay, good stuff. So I don't think any of this is in the book we just covered. But let's talk about your book a little bit. I mean, there's so much to talk about with you, Ryan, because you've just done so much at such a young age. It's truly amazing. Maybe just to get a context, what motivates you? So give us a little bit of your background. You were going to be a pastor. You got out of seminary. I think you were in it, right? You were actually.
I was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. For how long?
Less than a year, but I finished out the program at the institution I was in. I went to Indiana Wesleyan University. They had a degree that was seminary in a degree form. Mm-hmm. And so I opted out of the degree, but I finished at Indiana Wesleyan University, which is actually where I discovered Austrian economics and monetarist thinking. And so it completely changed my life because it made me fascinated in economics.
Right. You went from religion to the religion of capitalism, which we talked about that. And capitalism is the most successful religion ever. Yuval Noah Harari in his book Sapiens talks about that. That's a brilliant book, by the way. Highly recommend it. And the sequel to it, Homo Deus, which is also excellent. Many of you have heard of him. He's a very big author. So what got you interested? I mean, you really started your business career as an Amazon seller. Is that correct?
I started my career when I was 18 years old from my college dorm room as an affiliate marketer. I learned how to get websites to show up high in Google, get free traffic, and sell things on those websites. And I built email lists and monetized those email lists. And I became an internet marketer kind of by happenstance because I was in school to be a pastor thinking I was going to make $30,000 or $40,000 a year. I was always entrepreneurial. So I was always looking for the new way that always motivated us as kids, just find the next thing. And what I discovered a few years in was that my internet marketing skills, when applied to what I would consider a real business, having physical product brands, was a lot more effective. So rather than just trying to make this thing happen on the side, if I took my skill set and applied it to a real business, it was a lot more effective. Amazon was an emerging platform at the time. And so I started businesses that were selling products on Amazon. I'm often labeled as an Amazon seller. I just think of myself as an entrepreneur and a businessman who looks at whatever the modern trend or the modern opportunity is. And right now, that is e-commerce. And a few years ago, it was just Amazon because Amazon was this wide open west that was growing by leaps and bounds, and it still is growing by leaps and bounds. But now all of e-commerce has changed with it.
So was the first business selling yoga mats on Amazon after the internet and affiliate marketing kind of thing and getting sites to rank? Then it was Amazon. And was that yoga mats?
It's funny you should ask. I should clarify. I made my first $1 million before ever selling on Amazon. And then I took those skills, applied them to Amazon, and I decided it would be a good idea to start 3 businesses at once, Jason. That's not a good idea, right, just so you know. Yeah, okay. So I started with 3 different partners, by the way. Oh. So I started a yoga mats business, a sports nutrition company, and a supplement business all at the same time.
That's right. I forgot about the sports nutrition and supplements. Yeah, okay.
So the yoga mat company I built and sold within a year. Mm-hmm. The supplement company was a disaster failure. Mm-hmm. And the sports nutrition company, I started with $600, took it to about $10 million a year, and sold that for an 8-figure exit.
Wow.
So I kind of had a strikeout, a base hit, and a home run.
Mm-hmm. What's the difference between supplements and sports nutrition?
You know what? That's a great question. Who it's for. Uh-huh. That's the biggest thing. And one of the things I hammer home over and over and over in the book is that your business is determined by not what you sell, but who you sell to. And it's kind of like content marketing. Like we could be having this same conversation, and if it was a religious podcast, might not be as popular. But since we're talking to entrepreneurs and capitalists and people are interested in the direction of the world, we can have this nice conversation that covers a variety of topics. So who you target determines how successful a business is, no matter it is what you're selling. So I had a supplement company that sold generic fish oil and things that everybody takes, which you don't have a target market when you're doing that. That business failed. Where on the other side, I had a business that sold similar types of products like pre-workouts and post-workouts and testosterone boosters and branched chain amino acids, very specific to a sports and athletic market. And it was wildly successful. Really, the only difference, you could make an argument, yes, we sold different products, but the main thing that was different was who it was that we targeted.
That's excellent. You know, Ryan, one of the things you said on your podcast a long time ago that really influenced me is that the game is about building an audience quickly and monetizing to that audience. And I love that. That is just a fantastic philosophy, if you want to call it that. Can you expand on that idea a little bit?
Yeah. And I would say the audience is the primary asset that all businesses are doing. At the time that we're recording this, Joe Rogan just announced that he signed a 9-figure deal with Spotify to bring his content over to the Spotify platform. And we all know that the reason Spotify paid $100 million to Joe Rogan was not because of the sponsorship revenue. It was because of the audience that was being brought over. He just legitimized spodcasts. You should call it podcasts.
I love it.
That's not a bad name. So Spotify just legitimized their podcast player because now Joe Rogan is exclusive to them because he brought the audience over. It had nothing to do with the ad revenue, had nothing to do with the profitability, had everything to do with the scale of the audience. The audience was the asset. Yeah. And all business is really customer acquisition and audience building. And when you are aligning with your audience to bring them closer to the goals that they have for themselves, that's a business. And that's what we're all actually here to do.
Spodcasting. Remember, folks, you heard it here first. Yeah, Joe Rogan, $100 million deal with Spotify to make his podcast exclusive on Spotify. And you know what's interesting about that, Ryan, is we look at some of these giant deals that Rush Limbaugh did. I think that was years ago. It was $158 million 10-year contract or something. And then Howard Stern did a giant contract like that. But now it's a podcaster.
Yes.
So that is huge. It shows you the way the media landscape has changed so much. But like you say, it's all about an audience. It's all about an audience. I wonder what the multiplier was on that deal, by the way. You know, you said it's not about the sponsorship, it's about the audience, but his sponsorship couldn't have been, I don't know, $20 million a year and he got a 5 times multiple. It has to be way bigger than that, right?
I have no idea. Yeah. I mean, the most expensive podcast rate I've ever heard was a $38,000 per show sponsorship.
Who's that?
And so if Joe's is there or around there and he does maybe 3 ads an episode, let's just say it's 2. So he makes somewhere around $100,000, $80,000 to $100,000 per episode. Yeah. And he does 3 a week?
Yeah. Okay.
So or $300K a week.
Yeah.
So $1 million a month.
Yeah. No, yeah.
It might be a 10 times return.
Yeah. Wow. That's truly amazing. That's truly amazing. And it really shows you how the world is changing. Okay. So
and Jason, he might get to keep the ad revenue too. We don't know this.
We don't know his deal.
Own the audience and own the revenue, but now just be giving up YouTube and Apple Podcasts to be exclusive. It might just purely be a licensing deal, but he gets to keep all the ad revenue. Can you imagine?
That is insane. It's incredible. And he got Elon Musk to smoke a joint on his show. So that had the ratings went nuts for just that episode. Yeah. Yeah. Incredible. So build the audience, monetize to the audience, and you go through that in the book. So, before we get to that, you said e-commerce much more than just Amazon.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, Shopify is growing just as much as Amazon is now. I would consider anyone who sponsors the Joe Rogan podcast and sends them over to their own website to be in e-commerce. It's online shopping. And because of what we've seen happen in the last few months, online shopping has exploded even more to the point where even Walmart shoppers are now going online. So we are now seeing the laggard side of the adoption curve come into society.
Right.
We now have all retail stores have to have an online presence if they even want to survive. So that's e-commerce is not just shopping on Amazon. It is all online shopping, all online advertising, all online exposure. And that is just all commerce at this point. At some point, we'll drop the E and we'll just realize
it'll
that
be
it's
called
all
commerce. Yeah, right. And that's interesting that you say we'll drop the E, because in the first .com boom, 1999, 2000, 2001-ish, that range, they stopped using .com. Of course, they used it. It's on their website. But they didn't refer to themselves as eTrade.com. They just said eTrade. Of course, we have a website. Duh. That's an interesting point that we'll drop the E. That's good. Okay, so how does someone do it? I mean, we've seen a few of these brands, but they seem to be very well funded when they're not doing the Amazon thing. A few that I recognize, the Quip toothbrush, for example, not on Amazon, at least last I checked. And the socks, I can't think of the name of the company, but, Tim Ferriss, who we had dinner with, was promoting Me Undies for a while, where they send you new boxer shorts every month. And these are outside of that. Is that what you're talking about when you say, or are you talking about getting your product into stores or with big retailers, or what goes on outside the Amazon world, if you would?
Yeah, Good question. So my target market of the people that I serve are entrepreneurs who are starting their first 7-figure venture. That's my core target audience. And I'm probably the best in the world at helping an entrepreneurial minded person break 7 figures, sometimes go to 8 figures. That's my real wheelhouse. But what you're bringing up is just an extension of that, which is building a brand that has processes to acquire customers. And that can be a blend of Amazon and other advertising, or it can be focused on one channel like Shopify. But here's kind of my 3-stage approach that I give to most entrepreneurs. The entrepreneur who is sitting at their cubicle or at home saying, it's time for me to get a piece of the multi-trillion-dollar pie that is e-commerce, I say, we'll break this into a 12-month plan that has 3 phases. Those 3 stages are each 4 months. The first 4 months I call the grind. And it is simply 4 months of making hard decisions that most people don't want to make. Like, who is my customer? What products am I going to sell? What's the first product I'm going to sell to them? How am I going to launch this? How am I going to fund this? The boring stuff that no one sees except you, right, and making those decisions to get them out of the way. So we got through that as fast as possible with the goal of having 1 sale. That's it. We got 4 months to take 1 sale of 1 product. The second 4-month sprint, which I call the growth, is about taking that 1 product and getting it to 25 sales a day. Why? Because 4 products at 25 sales a day is 100 sales a day. And at a $30 price point, that's $1 million business. It's like $1.1-ish million. So that is the second 4-month phase, is getting that to 25 sales a day. And you do that through basic advertising, by getting good reviews, by creating connections with your customers, by building an audience, and by doing the hard stuff that most people don't want to do for about 4 months. That's what it takes to get 25 sales a day. Okay. And then that unlocks the third stage, which is the gold, which is when we repeat that process over 3 more products. And now we've got the road paved so we can go a lot faster. We now have a customer base. We have systems. We have repeat customers. We know the advertising game. And so within 12 months, we can have 4 products selling 25 sales a day, which is 100 sales a day. And at a $30 price point is $1 million business. Wow. That's how I help entrepreneurs cross that first million. And from there, we can add in other things like podcast sponsorships or doing the MeUndies home delivery program. There are other things.
Like a monthly program.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. But most people who are getting into this game are not well-funded e-commerce disruptive companies. They're small 1- and 2-person shows that are building a business because they want to live life on their own terms, or they have an idea that they're excited to bring to market. So they can go the Silicon Valley route of raising a bunch of money and doing large customer acquisition systems, or they can do it in this way, which allows them to do it with very little capital, get up to speed very quickly, hit $1 million business, prove that they have a good idea, and then they're off to the races.
That's fantastic. You really just clarified that. And let me give you a testimonial. When you say you're probably the best in the world, that may well be 100% accurate, because I know a lot of your students personally, and I've seen them build incredible businesses and have big exits too. So, more than $10 million exits. So, really, really, truly incredible.
Thank you.
So Ryan, the magic question probably everybody's thinking right now, or at least I am, what's the product? If you want to start a commerce business, not an e-commerce business, a commerce business, every business is a commerce business. What should you sell? What's the magic widget? How do you know what to pick? There's a plethora, there's a sea of products. Yep. We're all of us, I'm sure, have these kind of regrets, and I certainly do. I remember I was hosting, when I lived in Arizona, I lived a block from ASU, and I was hosting a birthday party for this cute girl, okay? And I remember I had a bunch of people over for her birthday, and I pulled out what is now called a selfie stick. And everybody thought, what is that? I had my old iPhone, many versions ago. This was maybe 2012-ish. And I put it up there and held it up and took everybody's picture in the room, with the view of I was in a high rise behind us and everything. And everybody's like, what is that thing? They're like, they never saw one of those before. I couldn't believe it. And now selfie sticks are everywhere, right? So what's the magic product? And we've all got a product, a gizmo, a gadget we've all thought of, right? That 6 months later, we saw it's everywhere, right?
All of the money is in Jesus bobbleheads.
The Jesus bobblehead, folks. That's good.
Okay, so here's how we answer
and the fact that you just had one of those handy is really funny. Yeah. You didn't bring it up during our religious
moments
conversation.
Like this, Jason.
Yeah.
Here's the answer to your question. That's the most popular question I'm asked over and over again. What do I sell?
Yeah, right.
The way you answer that question is by answering a different question, which is, who do I sell to? Who is my customer? Who do I serve? Who am I in business to help? If you ask the who, the what I sell becomes very clear and obvious. So if we say that our target market is new dads, which I am for the second time, right? I have a 6-month-old.
Yep. Philip.
Well, I can tell you that when you become a dad, strollers become the most fascinating thing on the planet.
Yeah.
You've never
the
noticed
engineering of strollers. Yeah.
Before you have a kid, strollers are the annoying thing that other people push around for some unknown reason.
Right. Yeah.
And then you're like, oh man, that one has a really interesting turn radius.
Yeah.
And does this one open?
Check out hers. I want one of those. It's like a status symbol, right?
That thing. What brand is that?
Yeah.
Right. So because I started a new journey, which was becoming a father, I spent some money on some things, on strollers and on clothes and on changing stations and on bassinets and on this machine called the Snoo, which rocks Philip to sleep at the exact rate I don't know, and bottles and baby food and all kinds of things, because I'm on this new journey. I'm making new buying behaviors for things that I didn't previously know that I needed because I didn't.
Right.
And so if you know exactly who it is and the new journey that they are starting, think about serving a new real estate investor, Jason. You have information and you have podcasts and you've got ready to go houses and you might have investment funds and opportunities and relationships. These are all things that people need when they're at the beginning of that journey of becoming a real estate investor or a new entrepreneur. They need training and they might buy a podcast mic and they might buy information on YouTube and they buy all kinds of things. They buy masterminds and they buy. So when you get somebody who is starting a new journey of their life and you make that your customer, then all of the products that become available to you are where you start. And that way you're not going, is it selfie sticks or is it Jesus bobbleheads or is it crystals or is it, no, who is the person? And then what does that person already buy? Can you name 5 products that person already buys? And if you can't, pick a different market. But what most people will discover is that they're looking for themselves or they're looking for someone that they know. I have a student whose market is new moms and nursing moms, and his market is really his wife and all her friends. So he just has to be really curious about what his wife and her peers are going through And that's his data for what the market's doing and what products he's going to release. So it's almost always someone you know or someone that you are, and then what you already buy and narrowing in from there.
Okay, so that makes perfect sense. Now that leads to the question of how do we pick that customer? How do we know which customer is the best? Do you want to focus on millennials, teenagers, Gen Z, baby boomers? How do you know? New parents? How do you know what avatar? Is it just what you're most interested in? Like you can make a fortune off any of these markets? Or
no, that's true. You can make a fortune off any of these markets. And what I've discovered is you can have two brands that sell the exact same product, but to different people, and then both be wildly successful. Mm-hmm. So the way that here's a good story. I have a student who sells his first product is an immunity supplement that he's selling on Amazon. Well, Jason, there are 1,000 immunity supplement companies.
Yeah.
There's
especially now.
right. They're popping up everywhere. You can buy one and it'll look exactly like the other, and most of us don't know the difference between the two. Mm-hmm. However, his market is American truck drivers. That is his direct brand. Why? Because he is a truck driver. And so because he's a truck driver, he can sit there and tell you, we're touching things all day long. We're meeting strangers all day long. We're cooped up. We're sitting all day long. We don't see the sun. Like our immune systems are different because we're just under different circumstances than the rest of the world. So he started an immunity brand and a supplement brand specifically for truck drivers. Why? Because he can speak exactly to them. He knows their pain points. He knows what they're going through. He knows what they're struggling with. He knows what they want. He knows what language they use. He knows what branding they use. And because he's going to bring this product to market, the truck driver is going to be primed and ready for that brand that is made specifically for them. And he's able to serve them in a way that he couldn't have served them if he had just made a generic supplement company. Even though the products are exactly the same, the truck driver is much more likely to take one step closer to the health that they desire most because the branding is specific exactly to them. Yeah. So it is not about, do I start a supplement company or do I target millennials? It is more, if I want to sell supplements, who is the rabid group of people that I can help that I have access to? An example of this is our buddy Mike Dillard. I was on his podcast and we were kind of riffing about what physical product brand he should start. And I was like, Mike, you've got maybe 100,000 or 1 million people who follow you. My guess is that the thing that you struggle with most is how do I come up with an idea that serves all 100,000 or 1 million people? And he said, that's exactly right. I said, that's the wrong question. The question is, are there 500 people in my list of 1 million that would absolutely love something that I brought to market? And that gave him the idea right away because he had a story about overcoming a specific health challenge that only a small part of his audience resonated with. But when they resonated with it, they really resonated with it. And that's when you know that you've got a multi-million-dollar winner.
Okay, so narrow the focus. That's one element of that. So Ryan, narrowing the focus is key. And I think that's a very, very good point. So is the idea to find a specific market, like the truck driver example, but a big enough market at the same time? Are any distinctions there we should think about?
In 2014, Dave Asprey brought mold-free coffee to the marketplace.
Yeah, talk about a narrow market.
There was no market for mold-free coffee. But he did have an audience at the time that was interested in biohacking. Mm-hmm. Now, had Dave Asprey wanted to be a coffee company, his second product would have been a dark roast. Right. But it wasn't. It was MCT oil, then bulletproof bars. And now you can go to a $15,000 retreat to use his biohacking gear, right? So no, it is not about finding a market that is big enough. It is about finding a group of people that are on a journey that goes deep enough. Mm-hmm. And if you're just committed to serving that group of people along the journey, more people will enter in the journey. You gather more market share. You come out with more and more products. That is the key to hitting 7 and 8 figures.
Okay, good. So it's kind of, like you could also maybe think about this like the long tail. The concept of the long tail is a niche market, but that niche market can grow and it starts picking up other early adopters from outside of itself. Now, probably not a lot of people become truck drivers suddenly in the prior example, but maybe well, you know what? It's like airborne, right? That teacher invented that airborne stuff. And, I don't know if that was meant for like people flying or if it was just that disease is airborne, right? Or I'm not quite sure of that message, but it seemed to resonate that expanded way beyond, but that was a school teacher. Like she could have said, hey, this is a supplement for school teachers to not get sick from all those kids touching everything, right? So
I don't know if you know this, Jason, that's exactly what she said.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So that's exactly how it started. Mm-hmm. It was a supplement for teachers. And because it was so specific to teachers, she told that story over and over and over again. It got a little bit of a raving fan base.
Right.
And then she got on Oprah.
Yeah.
And so what people will say is, oh, well, yeah, she got on Oprah.
Yeah, right.
Which is true. But the reason she got on Oprah was because she developed a brand that was specific to teachers. Mm-hmm. And when Teacher Day came up on Oprah, the teacher entrepreneur got featured on Oprah. And then the thing went crazy. It's kind of like, you know what Cliff Bars are,
sure,
Jason?
I have them, yeah.
So
they have too many carbs, though. Yeah,
but do you also know what Luna Bars are?
Yeah, I have Luna Bars.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so have you ever eaten a Luna Bar?
Yes.
What's wrong with you?
I don't think they're very good. I mean, I have eaten them.
Well, but, Jason, the Luna Bar is for women.
Oh, I didn't know that. They didn't tell me.
Luna Bars too. So this is the point. Right. Cliff Bar and Luna Bar are owned by the same company.
Okay.
Cliff Bar was made to be the one for the male audience.
Yeah. I think of rock climbing when I think of Cliff Bar. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's on the packaging, right? Yeah, you've got the rock climber on the packaging. Right. It's written in the masculine. He tells the story. The founder is a male. Mm-hmm. It's made for male endurance athletes. Okay. But that's how it came to market. Then it gets enough adoption to where a bunch of people, everybody has eaten a Cliff Bar.
Yeah.
Luna Bar is exactly the same. Mm-hmm. It's actually the Cliff Bar for women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting.
And if you read the packaging, look at the branding, it's made for women. But then it reached certain adoption where you're like, yeah, these are good.
Yeah.
I like them.
I just sort of look at the carb and the sugar content and the protein content. That's all I do whenever I choose a bar. But,
right. Well, yeah. I'm with you. We used to go to Vitamin Shop or GNC or shop online specifically for bodybuilding bars, or back then it was power bars, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, thank goodness we've moved on from that.
Yeah.
But now that market has now grown to the point where now there are specific macro friendly, low sugar, high protein bars coming to market. Mm-hmm. Quest did that. They just sold for $1 billion.
Wow. I didn't know about Quest.
They created a new category, which opened up the high fiber category. And so that's how brand adoption happens. It is brands serving the evolution and the adoption of new desires by a very specific group of people.
Yeah, really fascinating. Ryan, I want to ask you about one more whole separate topic area, maybe talk about that before we go. But on the business side of it that we're talking about now, anything you want to tell our audience? I mean, obviously there's so much to this. We went through the 3-stage process over the course of 12 months. You can do that to build the $1 million business, and some really interesting stuff on how brands work. I gained some good understanding on that, but anything else you want to share with our audience? Just anything about that.
The other thing that I hope entrepreneurs pick up from this is that this process builds businesses that can be scaled and sold. Mm-hmm. In the internet marketing world, it is mostly about fast cash, fancy cars, and not real businesses. Mm-hmm. It's about how much we can extract from the short-term process.
Let me give all our listeners an equation for the internet marketing world. Ryan, you've probably heard this one. But whenever somebody tells you how much money they're making and they brag about it, just divide by 8. That's the true number. Okay, divide by 8. Okay, go ahead. That's about
right.
Yeah.
But a physical products brand is something that can be scaled and sold, because right now we're in this changing of the guard where all of the big brands like the Kellogg's of the world are buying up these small brands that have a presence online, because that's what they need in order to shore up their share prices and shore up new products that serve their existing customer bases. They can't innovate as fast as new, nimble entrepreneurs can. So they're buying up the little brands. Even the brands that just do a few $1 million a year are being bought at high valuations because big brands are after the person that they target more than they're after the product.
Very interesting. Very interesting point. Okay, good stuff. The other topic I want to cover with you quickly is you and I both met because you like real estate investing. And just thought I'd get your thoughts on where we are now, where we're going. I have 2 months ago, and the time frame we're in is pandemic era, folks. So just if you listen to this podcast much later, so you have a point of reference. But 2 months ago, before anybody was saying it, I was saying that there is going to be a mass migration to low density living. I think that is huge. It's a tidal wave, and a lot of people are going to be very rich, and some will end up very poor because of that migration trend. And there's going to be changes in lifestyles, roommates, assisted living, multi-generational housing. I've identified a whole bunch of these trends, but I just thought I'd get your take on real estate investing. Where you think the economy is going. You talk about the economy all the time. It's one of my favorite topics. That's probably why I'm single. But economists aren't, like super romantically attractive.
No one has Peter Schiff as a sex symbol on their vision board.
No, but he is married, and his wife is good looking too. I've met her. Yeah.
So where I think we are in the cycle is I think we are being forced out of cities. And by forced out, I mean we're going to voluntarily choose to not live around a bunch of human beings.
Right.
And I think the micro community is going to be like the neighborhood is going to matter a lot more. And the neighborhood looks a lot like a suburb, or it looks like more land, more space. I think we're now going to see, like here in Texas, it costs more to buy a small condo downtown in the hotbed than it does to buy a 25-acre ranch 20 minutes outside of town.
Right.
Watch how quickly that's going to flip.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
So I think that's the trend, that more space, bigger homes, and or not even bigger homes, but like more neighborhood is going to matter a lot more than being close to the action.
Yeah,
the action is distributed now. You can have anything delivered.
Right. The action has flattened. The world is flat. I'm not talking about like flattening the curve. I'm talking about the Thomas Friedman concept of the world is flat. Now the action is flattening because everybody is now finally adopted teleconferencing, video meetings, all that kind of stuff. And it's really great, which actually we'll get to your book tour in just a moment. But so I think you're right about that. What about the economy in general, though? For investors, I've sort of likened it to this dichotomy. One part is I think we're going to wake up to a much smaller economy. I am not positive on the economy. I'm negative. I'm bearish. Okay. I think the economy is going to get smaller. I think people are going to look toward a simpler life, and the economy is going to shrink. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. But on the other side of that, you can make money investing if you're investing with the trend. And one of them we talked about is the trend from, high to lower density. And there are many others. But, your thoughts on the economy in general?
Well, I don't think we're going back. I think there's like this demand or this desire to go back to normal, whatever that means.
Yeah, right.
And I don't think we're going back. I do think we're going forward. And I think forward is going to be better than the past. In terms of the size of the economy, I think long term, it's going to be larger. But there's going to be this adjustment period where we are really folding forward the things that we like into the future. For example, this shocked me. My gym opened this week and I don't really want to go.
Yeah, right.
I would rather work out in my home gym, and I would rather deck that out so it's awesome.
Right. Yeah.
So my spending is actually going to be, I'm going to spend more on a home gym than I am on going to the gym. But that has other repercussions. Like that means a lot of gyms are going to suffer a lot. But that attention is now going to flow to any company that is providing home gyms for people like you and me.
Yeah. So you need an extra room for your home gym now. You need extra space. Yes. You need an extra room for your home office. And if there's a couple with 2 kids, that's 4 people. And if the kids are studying at home now, they're not going to school, and both members of the couple are working at home, you now need 4 home offices. So I think the homes are going to get bigger, certainly than the condo in New York City or the condo in downtown Austin. And so there is going to be more demand for space. And the home is the center of the universe. In the 90s, Ryan, you were way too young, and you're always teasing me about how old am I, right? But in the 90s, there was this futurist who was really popular back then, Faith Popcorn. And she wrote about this concept called cocooning. Cocooning. Okay. It was like our key buzzword back then. And the big thing moving us toward cocooning, meaning staying at home, here was the technology. You ready for this? Home theater systems. Home theater systems. Why do people need to go to the movies? Why do they need to go to a Broadway play? We've got these big screen TVs now that we didn't used to have, and these great sound systems. So you can just enjoy all this at home, and you can cocoon. And now we've got the internet, the home office, the home gym, everything. But yeah, I think we're talking about the businesses. I think people that sell products for the home, whether they be home gym, and we saw what happened right after this. All the home gym equipment just sold out, right? But anything that is for the home is the center of the universe now, right?
That's right. And so that's one of those just next trends that if you're serving, you'll do great. And the outside economist might see that as a reduction of economic activity, but it's just the puck moving. It's just moving the way that it always has been. And our mistake would be trying to keep things the way that they are, and rather than allowing things to just evolve.
Right. It's creative destruction, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Good stuff. So anything more about the economy, investing, anything else you want to say? Let's wrap it up.
I think that we might see an accelerated rate of old established businesses going under.
Oh, yeah.
I think all that has happened during quarantine is that we've expedited what was naturally going to happen.
Right.
And so getting ahead of the next trends is becoming more and more important, because I think the life cycle of businesses may be shorter, because the purpose of business is to come in, help someone along their journey, move, and then help them move on down the line. And we're moving faster. We're moving through those journeys a lot faster.
Yeah. We've brought the future closer to us.
Very much.
Right. Yeah. So what was going to happen in 5-7 years has already happened now. It's happening now. The adoption of teleconferencing, which, this technology is not new. It's been around for 15-20 years easily. But now everybody's actually using it and realizing they can work at home, even if they thought they couldn't. So that's right. That's good. And Ryan, that's also, I think you alluded to this before, but it's going to make a lot of businesses much more efficient.
Very much.
And that efficiency benefit is going to enrich us because the future has been brought forward. So that's good. A lot of good things coming out of this. One of the things
that I don't think we give enough credit to when we're looking at economics is the benefit of lower prices. Economists fear this.
Right, deflation.
They see that as the wrong direction, but it's really the natural order of things. So, for example, had we not intervened at all with any stimulus plan in this pandemic, then you would have had a natural downward pressure on everything. Prices would have come through the floor. And we do see that. And so we see it at the gas pump, for example, right? But we would have seen it in wages, which people would decry, but standard of livings would actually go up because things would be so cheap. Housing prices would come down, stocks would come down, prices, everything would come way down. But we've been inflating our way through it to keep prices at a certain level. I don't think we give enough credit to the benefit of lower prices, which is what stimulates demand and allows us to go after the things and the goods and services that we want faster.
So a lot of your students use Chinese manufacturers, and that supply chain has been disrupted, obviously. And now, even though the supply chain is coming back online, there's been some demand destruction, there's been some supply destruction, and that's supply demand shock is what that's called. But a lot of people are looking to onshore those supply chains and diversify them at least. Some of it's moving to Africa or other low-cost places, but some of it's moving back to the U.S. Is that going to cause inflation, or will increased efficiencies offset that?
I don't think productivity increases inflation. Mm-hmm. I think government policy increases inflation.
Monetary, then.
Yeah, right. I mean, we say Federal Reserve is independent of the government. It's really the fourth branch of government, right? Mm-hmm. So I consider Federal Reserve a branch of government. Sure. It's government policy in my mind.
Right.
But I don't think productivity ever increases inflation. Intervention does. So we might see inflation happen, but I don't think it's going to be because we're bringing production onshore.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Ryan, give out your website and wrap it up with any closing thoughts.
My website's super hard to remember. It's called capitalism.com. And my podcast is also called capitalism.com. And I wrote a book. It's really good. You should get it. It's called 12 Months to 1 Million. It's how to pick a winning product, build a real business, and become a 7-figure entrepreneur.
Fantastic. That's great. You know, I think the only person who can't remember the title of your website is Bernie Sanders.
I thought you were going to say Joe Biden.
Yeah, well, Joe Biden can't remember anything.
Well, when I go to the Capitol, you know the website. That was Joe Biden.
There you go. It's funny to see him trying to stream from home, isn't it? It's pretty hilarious.
I feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, I do too. Well, good stuff. Ryan Moran, thanks so much for joining us. It's been awesome talking to you, as always.
Always a blast hanging out with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.